A common mantra among Game of Thrones fans is that the show has been good from seasons 1 to 4, before George R.R. Martin left the production, and the showrunners ran out of books to adapt. There's both some truth and some falsity in this statement. Undeniably, Game of Thrones gave us some of the best moments in the history of television, and it remained a relatively faithful adaptation of Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire saga. However, upon deeper retrospection, one can see that the show had a tendency to take certain creative liberties as early as in season 1. This is nothing wrong. Books and television are different mediums and are ruled by different rules, and as such, some changes, cuts, and condensations are necessary when adapting the written word, especially books of such magnitude as A Song of Ice and Fire. Some of the changes have been widely praised by fans, others were widely hated. And there was also the third category of changes that largely went under the radar and are rarely discussed in the community. Sometimes they may be acknowledged, but never analyzed deeper. One of those changes was the substantial removal of magic, dreams and prophecies, and focus on political plotlines instead, exemplified by titling the adaptation Game of Thrones as opposed to A Song of Ice and Fire. This change was especially felt in how the storylines of Bran Stark and Daenerys Targaryen played out in the show. However, with Daenerys Targaryen, it was not only the removal of magic that significantly altered her character, but also some other adaptational changes that largely went under the radar. All characters from Martin's magnum opus underwent some changes from the source material, be it the whitewashing of Tyrion or mellowing down Jon Snow, but among the protagonists of the story, it was perhaps Daenerys who was altered the most from her book counterpart. And, contrary to a commonly accepted belief, these changes didn't happen after they ran out of books and Martin left the production, but were present as early as in season 1. These changes show that the producers of the show not only did not grasp her book character, but were at times maliciously twisting it to their own preferred version of her. As such, in this series of videos, I am going to point out how Game of Thrones writers were dedicating towards misrepresenting and misadapting Daenerys Targaryen from the very beginning. I consider this a very important issue, since Dany's portrayal in the show regularly gets projected on Daenerys' book counterpart, creating a strange amalgamation that, for some reason, is considered to be the canon even among staunch book readers. The creation of the TV show had an immense effect on how book Daenerys is perceived and discussed, more so than any other character in the franchise. Every time you see people talk about book Daenerys being entitled to the throne, about how she burns anyone who disagrees with her, about breaking the will, believe it or not, they are actually talking about the show counterpart. Book Daenerys never burns anyone for disagreeing with her. Her motivations for reclaiming the throne is drastically different, and she never once talks about breaking the will. Perhaps it's good to start the discussion of the real Daenerys Targaryen precisely by asking ourselves this question. Why did we allow the visual medium to completely overtake our perception of book characters? It is not only acceptable, but basically encouraged to join the versions of book and show Dany into this strange hybrid. Other characters were affected by that as well, but not to such a drastic degree. When reflecting on this issue, I generally found 3 reasons for this state of affairs. 1. Many people were introduced to the books via the show. 2. Even if they weren't, Game of Thrones is still revered even by people who performatively disparage the show's later seasons. 3. Visual mediums almost always triumph over the written word, and it's difficult to separate the two, especially since very often we remain unaware of how the moving picture affected our perception of the written word. I feel the need to make clear that I have immense love for both versions of the character, and I could not imagine anyone bringing Daenerys to life better than Emilia Clarke, especially since she was one of the very few people in the cast to actually read the books, perfectly understood Daenerys' book counterpart, and even fought with the showrunners to show the side of Dany they never really allowed her to play, all while going through 2 brain aneurysms. Yet, I do believe them to basically be separate entities, especially in the later parts of the show, where the mischaracterization was taken to the extreme, though the signs have always been there. Due to the complexity of Dany's storyline, if you wanted to analyze all of it in bulk, the video would last several hours. Instead, it will be divided into several parts, each encompassing one installment of the book series and the corresponding seasons. As such, this particular release will only deal with Season 1 of the show Game of Thrones and the first part of the book series, A Game of Thrones. Additionally, I will not be able to point out every minuscule difference in the adaptation, since I know that some of these were done due to budgetary and time constraints. Rather than to dwell on all the possible details, whenever possible I will try to focus on the bigger picture, choosing only the scenes and aspects of Dany's character that contributed the most to the change in her characterization. Before we start, remember that if you like my content, like, subscribe and share so that more people can see it. Make sure to click the notification button so that you never miss a new video. Also, you can listen to this on Spotify if you prefer. Check the link in the description. The first episode of Game of Thrones, Winter is Coming, adapts Daenerys' first 2 chapters in a Game of Thrones. Dany is introduced to us in the same way she is in the books. She is getting prepared for a meeting with Khal Drogo before a marriage deal is struck.
Daenerys! Daenerys! There's our bride-to-be. Look, a gift from Illyria. Touch it. Go on, feel the fabric. Isn't he a gracious host?
We've been his guests for over a year and he's never asked us for anything.
Well, Illyria's no fool. He knows I won't forget my friends when I come into my throne. You still slouch. Let them see. You have a woman's body now. I need you to be perfect today. Can you do that for me? You don't want to wake the dragon, do you?
No.
When they write the history of my reign, sweet sister, they will say it began today.
It's too hot, my lady.
Here already we have several key differences between how it played out in the books versus in the show. The conversation between Dany and Viserys plays out more or less the same, though in the books he is more violent and makes several disgusting remarks he doesn't say in the show. But the key change here is that the scene is cut right after Dany enters the hot tub. It is longer in the books, introducing 2 crucial aspects: Daenerys' internal monologue and a certain detail omitted from the adaptation. The loss of the internal monologue is understandable given the difference between mediums, but with it a lot of exposition got lost and it was not compensated in any way later, even though it should have, given that it is a crucial insight into Dany's psyche. What matters here the most are the mentions of the house with the red door. She remembered Sir Willem dimly, a great grey bear of a man, half blind, roaring and bellowing orders from his sickbed. The servants had lived in terror of him, but he had always been kind to Dany. He called her little princess and sometimes my lady, and his hands were soft as old leather. He never left the bed though, and the smell of sickness clung to him day and night, a hot, moist, sickly sweet odor. That was when they lived in Braavos, in the big house with the red door. Dany had her own room there, with a lemon tree outside her window. After Sir Willem had died, the servants had stolen what little money they had left, and soon after, they had been put out of the big house. Dany had cried when the red door closed behind them forever. They had wandered since then, from Braavos to Myr, from Myr to Tyrosh, and on to Qohor and Volantis and Lys, never staying long in any one place. Her brother would not allow it. The usurpers' hired knives were close behind them, he insisted, though Dany had never seen one. In fact, most of the backstory of the 2 siblings has been omitted. Dany does mention that they've been guests at Darius Man's for a while, but we don't know that they've been living in poverty and on the run before. Someone unfamiliar with the source material may as well assume that they've been living in comfort and privilege even while in exile, and I did encounter show-only people who thought precisely that. This is also reinforced by one small change. When Viserys presents Daenerys with a gown, she does not pull back from it to ask, "Is it really mine?" the way she does in the books. Since Daenerys and Viserys lived in poverty most of their lives, it's foreign for Dany to own something so beautiful and expensive. At first the Magisters and Ancorns and merchant princes were pleased to welcome the last Targaryens to their homes and tables, but as the years passed and the usurper continued to sit upon the Iron Throne, doors closed and their lives grew meaner. Years passed, they've been forced to sell their last few treasures, and now even the coin they had gotten from Mother's crown had gone. In the alleys and wine sinks of Pentos, they called her brother the Beggar King. Dany did not want to know what they called her. Going back to the house with the red door and why is it so important? This house is not only a memory of the only carefree days in Dany's life, but also a representation of her true desires. that of a home and a sense of belonging. The dream of the throne is and has always been Viserys's. What she herself actually wants is a simple life. We will have it all back someday, sweet sister, he would promise her. Sometimes his hands shook when he talked about it. The jewels and the silks, Dragonstone and King's Landing, the Iron Throne and the Seven Kingdoms, all they have taken from us, we will have it back. Viserys lived for that day. All Daenerys wanted back was the big house with the red door, the lemon tree outside her window, the childhood she had never known. Thus, the omission of the house with the red door seems deliberate, considering that the writers, who allegedly read the books, did not present Dany's fundamental desires in their version of the story, instead making her obsessed with the throne for the sake of ambition, not duty instilled into her by Viserys. Well, indeed, all Daenerys wanted back was the house with the red door. Another crucial aspect of the story that the show did not bother including is that Daenerys is not just married off, but sold as a bridal slave. The girl scrubbed her back and her feet and told her how lucky she was. Drogo is so rich that even his slaves wear golden collars. 100,000 men ride in his calasar, and his palace in Vaes d'Atrac has 200 rooms and doors of solid silver. Last of all came the collar, a heavy golden tower emblazoned with ancient Valyrian glyphs. Now you look all a princess, the girl said breathlessly when they were done. Dany glanced at her image in the silvered-looking glass that Illyrio had so thoughtfully provided. A princess, she thought. But she remembered what the girl had said, how Khal Drogo was so rich, even his slaves wore golden collars. We do see that one of the extras wears an elaborate collar to indicate that Pentos is a city where slavery is present in everything but name. However, no collar is visible on Daenerys either in this scene or the scene where she is being introduced to Drogo. It is thus reasonable to assume that the showrunners disregarded this detail and did not fully grasp that the situation Daenerys finds herself in is that of a purchase, and she becomes his bridal slave, not just a bride in a bad arranged marriage. This was further passed to the impressionable audience, especially with how the relationship was adapted later. Next change can easily be explained with budgetary constraints. In the books, Daenerys meets Drogo at a big party in his Pentoshi manse, as opposed to the show, when it's just outside Illyrio's manse, with only a few people present. In the books, it is also during this scene where Daenerys expresses her explicit fear of Drogo. Viserys is noticeably cruel towards her, and we see how much more control he has over her. Her brother hurt her sometimes when she woke the dragon, but he did not frighten her the way this man frightened her. I don't want to be his queen, she heard herself say in a small, thin voice. Please, please, Viserys, I don't want to. I want to go home. Home! He kept his voice low, but she could hear the fury in his tone. How are we to go home, sweet sister? They took our home from us. He drew her into the shadows, out of sight, his fingers digging into her skin. How are we to go home? He repeated, meaning King's Landing and Dragonstone, and all the realm they had lost. His fingers dug hard into her arm, demanding an answer. I don't know, she said at last, her voice breaking. Tears welled in her eyes. I do, he said sharply. We go home with an army, sweet sister. With Khal Drogo's army. That is how we go home. And if you must wed him and beg him for that, you will. He smiled at her. I would let his whole calasar fuck you if need be, sweet sister. All 40,000 men and their horses too, if that was what it took to get my army. Be grateful it is only Drogo. In time you might even learn to like him. Now dry your eyes. Illyrio is bringing him over, and he will not see you crying. Smile, Viserys whispered nervously, his hand falling to the hilt of his sword. And stand up straight. Let him see that you have breasts. Gods know you have little enough as is. Daenerys smiled and stood up straight. A similar exchange in the show happens after Dany is already introduced to Drogo, alongside Illyrio and Viserys discussing future plans.
It won't be long now. Soon you will cross the narrow sea and take back your father's throne. The people drink secret toasts to your health. They cry out for their true king.
When will they be married?
Soon. The Dothraki never stay still for long.
I know how to play a man like Drogo. I give him a queen, and he gives me an army.
I don't want to be his queen. I want to go home.
So do I. I want us both to go home. But they took it from us. So tell me, sweet sister, how do we go home?
I don't know.
We go home with an army, with Khal Drogo's army. I would let his whole tribe fuck you. All 40,000 men and their horses too, if that's what it took.
And this exchange between the two of them could perhaps be a good moment to bring up the house with the red door. Daenerys says, I want to go home, so it would make sense for her to say what she means by home. Instead, she is not given any voice, and the expression of I want to go home seems a bit jarring, because We do not know what precisely she means. Viserys interprets it as Westeros, but the only thing Dany truly knew as home was the house in Braavos. But that house is not there, so what does she mean by that? Right before that, another aspect is somewhat glossed over. How Daenerys knows that Illyrio is playing Viserys for a fool. The realm will rise for its rightful king. Tyrell, Redwyne, Darry, Greyjoy. They have no more love for the usurper than I do. The Dornishmen burn to avenge Alia and her children, and the small folk will be with us. They cry out for their king. He looked at Illyrio anxiously. They do, don't they? They are your people and they love you well, Magister Illyrio said amiably. In holdfasts, all across the realm, men lift secret toasts to your health, while women sew dragon banners and hide them against the day of your return from across the water. He gave a massive shrug. Or so my agents tell me. Then he had no agents, no way of knowing what anyone was doing or thinking across the narrow sea. But she mistrusted Illyrio's sweet words, as she mistrusted everything about Illyrio. Her brother was nodding eagerly, however. I shall kill the usurper myself, he promised, who had never killed anyone. As he killed my brother Rhaegar, and Lannister too, the Kingslayer, for what he did to my father. That would be most fitting, Magister Illyrio said. Dany saw the smallest hint of smile playing around his lips, but her brother did not notice. This is not immediately apparent, since Emilia Clarke does make some expressions that suggest she thinks all of this is bullshit, but it will be important once we move to season 2, so let's keep a pin on that. We then immediately move on to Daenerys' wedding to Drogo, yet in the books, several things happen before that. For example, Viserys reinforces that the matter of Daenerys' marriage to Drogo is a purchase. The exile had offered her brother his sword the night Dany had been sold to Khal Drogo. He can have her tomorrow if he likes, her brother said. He glanced over at Dany, and she lowered her eyes, so long as he pays the price. Another crucial thing removed from the show are Dany's dragon dreams. While I'm willing to let some changes slide due to budgetary or time constraints, these are some of the most outrageous removals from Dany's storyline, since they are crucial to her growth as a character and what she does by the end of her arc. This change corresponds with a general removal of magic and fantastical elements from all of Game of Thrones. This is the first dragon dream that gets omitted. There are no more dragons, Dany thought, staring at her brother, though she did not dare say it aloud. Yet that night she dreamt of one. Viserys was hitting her, hurting her. She was naked, clumsy with fear. She ran from him, but her body seemed thick and ungainly. He struck her again. She stumbled and fell. You woke the dragon, he screamed as he kicked her. You woke the dragon, you woke the dragon. Her thighs were slick with blood. She closed her eyes and whimpered. As if in answer, there was a hideous ripping sound and the crackling of some great fire. When she looked again, Viserys was gone. Great columns of flame rose all around, and in the midst of them was the dragon. It turned its great head slowly. When its molten eyes found hers, she woke, shaking and covered with a fine sheen of sweat. She had never been so afraid, until the day of her wedding came at last. There are two important changes to how the wedding plays out in the show. The first change is the circumstances in which Daenerys obtains her beloved filly, the silver. Nervously, Dany gathered the reins in her hands and slid her feet into the short stirrups. She was only a fair rider. She had spent far more time traveling by ship and wagon and palanquin than by horseback. Praying that she would not fall off and disgrace herself, she gave the filly the lightest and most timid touch with her knees, and for the first time in hours she forgot to be afraid. Or perhaps it was for the first time ever. The silver-grey filly moved with a smooth and silken gait, and the crowd parted for her, every eye upon them. Dany found herself moving faster than she had intended, yet somehow it was exciting rather than terrifying. The horse broke into a trot, and she smiled. The Dothraki scrambled to clear a path. The slightest pressure with her legs, the lightest touch on the reins, and the filly responded. She sent it into a gallop, and now the Dothraki were hooting and laughing and shouting at her as they jumped out of her way. As she turned to ride back, a fire pit loomed ahead, directly in her path. They were hemmed in on either side, with no room to stop. A daring she had never known filled Daenerys then, and she gave the filly her head. The silver horse leapt the flames as if she had wings. When she pulled up before Magister Illyrio, she said, "Tell Khal Drogo that he has given me the wind." The fat Pentoshi stroked his yellow beard as he repeated her words in Dothraki, and Dany saw her new husband smile for the first time. While I can understand that they could not pull out a horse jumping over a fire, something they've tried and failed as they were recording the pilot, I am still puzzled by the fact that Dany does not even get to ride for a bit, since I find it incredibly important for her personal journey and her path towards liberation. This is the first time in her life that she isn't afraid. They did, however, find the time to include the strange "there is no word for thank you" in Dothraki, something that is not present in the books, painting an even more racist and orientalist picture of the tribe than the original story. The second change is, to this day, a subject of debate in the community. One of the few changes that get discussed in any way, shape or form. Both the author and the community insist that the scene of Book Daenerys' wedding night was consensual, while the show chose to adapt it as rape. Except it is rape in both instances, because there is no way in hell a 13-year-old girl is able to give consent to a man nearing 30. Rape is rape, regardless of whether there was foreplay beforehand, or if the perpetrator was violent or not. A 13-year-old child cannot consent. End of story. The show is an explicit scene of rape. Daenerys cries from beginning to end. While I will never argue in favor of rape scenes shown on screen, I believe this could be a good change. Keyword could, to show what kind of a relationship we speak of here. If this was followed consistently for the rest of the season, and if only we saw that golden color, we could have far less ambiguity with regards to Daenerys' bridal slavery. Unfortunately, that is not the case, and some puzzling changes follow for the rest of the season. Daenerys' third chapter in AGOT was split in between two episodes. The show understandably opted for a chronological depiction of Dany's initial struggles in the Khalasar and her later adapting to it, while the books show Dany already adapted, with the struggles reflected on by her later. Unfortunately, we must return to the scene of Dany's wedding night to Drogo to point out something that fans often miss. I still stand by the fact that their wedding night was rape, since a 13-year-old cannot consent. But even after the gentler first time, Drogo is still shown violently raping her every night after it, to the point that she is suicidal. Even the nights brought no relief. Khal Drogo ignored her when they rode, even as he had ignored her during their wedding, and spent his evenings drinking with his warriors and blood riders, racing his prize horses, watching women dance and men die. Dany had no place in these parts of his life. She was left to sup alone, or with Ser Jorah and her brother, and afterward to cry herself to sleep. Yet every night, sometime before the dawn, Drogo would come to her tent and wake her in the dark, to ride her as relentlessly as he rode his stallion. He always took her from behind, Dothraki fashion, for which Dany was grateful. That way her lord husband could not see the tears that wet her face, and she could use her pillow to muffle her cries of pain. When he was done, he would close his eyes and begin to snore softly, and Dany would lie beside him, her body bruised and sore, hurting too much for sleep. Day followed day, and night followed night, until Dany knew she could not endure a moment longer. She would kill herself rather than go on, she decided one night. Dany's struggles with horse riding and the demanding life in the Khalasar are shown, but what is omitted is what actually helps her cope with it, her second dragon dream, which was not adapted, just like the first one. Dany is shown taking strength from her dragon eggs, but it is that dragon dream in the books that actually changes everything for her. Yet when she slept that night, she dreamt the dragon dream again. Viserys was not in it this time. There was only her and the dragon. Its scales were black as night, wet and slick with blood. Her blood, Dany sensed. Its eyes were pools of molten magma, and when it opened its mouth, the flame came rolling out in a hot jet. She could hear it singing to her. She opened her arms to the fire, embraced it, let it swallow her whole, let it cleanse her and temper her and score her clean. She could feel her flesh sear and blacken and slot away, could feel her blood boil and turn to steam, and yet there was no pain. She felt strong and new and fierce. And the next day, strangely, she did not seem to hurt quite so much. It was as if the gods had heard her and taken pity. Even her handmaids noticed the change. "Khaleesi," Jigby said, "what is wrong? Are you sick?" "I was," she answered, standing over the dragon's eggs that Telerio had given her when she wed. She touched one, the largest of the three, running her hand lightly over the shelf. Black and scarlet, she thought, like the dragon in my dream. The stone felt strangely warm beneath her fingers. Or was she still dreaming? She pulled her hand back nervously. From that hour onward, each day was easier than the one before it. While she was terrified during her first dragon dream, in this one she is metaphorically cleansed by fire, and it gives her strength to adapt to the difficulties of life in the Khalasar. It also shows that she had a dream of Drogon before he was born. Dany would later use this dream to piece the clues on how to wake dragons from stone, among other things. Again, I do not see a good reason why this dream was omitted. I know D&D were deathly allergic to magic and dreams, but for crying out loud, you are adapting a fantasy series. It was not that difficult to pull it out, even with a limited budget for CGI. Removing this dream is especially baffling once you see what other things they did decide to include. In Book 1, Daenerys is 13, and in the show, she is 16, 17. Yet for some reason, the showrunners decided to include this scene of Doria teaching Dany how to please a man sexually, something that should be absolutely horrifying to everyone with morals. In the books, only one sentence is dedicated to these conversations. Doria, stay and eat with me, Dany commanded when she sent her other handmaids away. The Lysian girl had hair the color of honey, and eyes like the summer sky. She lowered those eyes when they were alone. You honor me, Khaleesi, she said, but it was no honor, only service. Long after the moon had risen, they sat together, talking. The show sexualizes both of these women, giving us the scene of girl-on-girl action for their male fans to salivate at, which is already outrageous, but it's one exchange between the two that pissed me off even more.
I don't think that Drogo will like it with me on top.
You will make him like it, Khaleesi. Men want what they've never had, and the Dothraki take slaves like a hound takes a bitch. Are you a slave, Khaleesi?
Then don't make love like a slave.
Dany shakes her head when she is asked whether she is a slave. And this cements my belief that the showrunners had not grasped that Drogo bought Daenerys like chattel. Daenerys is his slave in the books, unambiguously, until the very end of A Game of Thrones. Fans introduced to the books via the show then assume this belief as their own, and the mention of a golden collar and all the times Dany was referred to as having been physically sold flew over their heads, since as established, the show will always take precedence in one's mind, unless one takes conscious effort to repel it, and most people don't. Episode Lord Snow is a good moment to bring up another change in Dany's character, the removal of more whimsical aspects of her personality in favor of making her more stoic, a change that will follow for the rest of the show. She rode on, submerging herself deeper in the Dothraki Sea. The green swallowed her up. The air was rich with the scents of earth and grass, mixed with the smell of horseflesh and Dany's sweat and the oil in her hair. Dothraki smells. They seemed to belong here. Dany breathed it all in, laughing. She had a sudden urge to feel the ground beneath her, to curl her toes in the thick black soil. Swinging down from her saddle, she let the silver graze while she pulled off her high boots. In the show, Dany does not verbally express her admiration of the land. She is shown admiring the scenery, but she does not giggle and does not take off her boots just for fun. All things a teenager could definitely do. She instead remains stoic. The biggest change from the books is how the argument between her and Viserys plays out. Let's compare how it plays out in the books versus the show. Viserys came upon her as sudden as a summer storm, his horse rearing beneath him, as he ran up to her. "You dare!" he screamed at her. "You give commands to me! To me!" He vaulted off his horse, stumbling as he landed. His face was flushed as he struggled back to his feet. He grabbed her, shook her. "Have you forgotten who you are? Look at you! Look at you!" Dany did not need to look. She was barefoot, with old hair, wearing Dothraki riding leathers and a painted vest given her as a bride gift. She looked as though she belonged here. Viserys was sold and stayed in city silks and ringmail. He was still screaming. "You do not command the dragon. Do you understand? I am the Lord of the Seven Kingdoms. I will not hear orders from some horse lord slut. Do you hear me?" His hand went under her vest, his fingers digging painfully into her breast. "Do you hear me?" Dany shoved him away, hard. Viserys stared at her, his lilac eyes incredulous. She had never defied him, never fought back. Rage twisted his features. He would hurt her now, and badly, she knew that. Crack! The whip made a sound like thunder. The colt took Viserys around the throat and yanked him backward. He went sprawling in the grass, stunned and choking. The Dothraki riders hooted at him as he struggled to free himself. The one with the whip, young Drogo, rasped a question. Dany did not understand his words, but by then Irri was there, and Ser Jorah, and the rest of her cast. "Drogo asks if you would have him dead, Khaleesi," Irri said. "No," Dany replied. "No." Drogo understood that. One of the others barked out a command, and the Dothraki laughed. Irri told her, "Quarrel thinks you should take an ear to teach him respect." Her brother was on his knees, his fingers digging under the leather coils, crying incoherently, struggling for breath. The whip was tight around his windpipe. "Tell them I do not wish him harmed," Dany said. Irri repeated her words in Dothraki. Drogo gave a pull on the whip, yanking Viserys around like a puppet on a string. He went sprawling again, freed from the leather embrace, a thin line of blood under his chin, where the whip had cut deep. "I warned him what would happen, my lady," Ser Jorah Mormont said. "I told him to stay the rich, as you commanded." "I know you did," Dany replied, watching Viserys. He lay on the ground, sucking in air noisily, red-faced and sobbing. He was a pitiful thing. He had always been a pitiful thing. Why had she never seen that before? There was a hollow place inside her, where her fear had been. "Take his horse," Dany commanded Ser Jorah. Viserys gaped at her. He could not believe what he was hearing. Nor could Dany quite believe what she was saying. Yet the words came. "Let my brother walk behind us to the Kalasar. Among the Dothraki, the man who does not ride was no man at all, the lowest of the low, without honor or pride. Let everyone see him as he is." "No," Viserys screamed. He turned to Ser Jorah, pleading in the common tongue, with words the horsemen would not understand. "Hit her, Mormont. Hurt her. Your king commands it. Kill these Dothraki dogs and teach her." The exiled knight looked from Dany to her brother, she barefoot, with dirt beneath her toes and all in her hair, he with his silks and steel. Dany could see the decision on his face. "He shall walk, Khaleesi," he said. He took her brother's horse in hand, while Dany remounted her silver. Viserys gaped at him, and sat down in the dirt. He kept his silence, but he would not move, and his eyes were full of poison, as they rode away.
You dare! You give commands to me! To me! You do not command the dragon. I am Lord of the Seven Kingdoms. I don't take orders from savages or their sluts. Do you hear me?
Caro asked if you want him dead, Khaleesi. No! Rakara say you should take ear to teach respect.
Please don't hurt him. Tell him I don't want my brother harmed.
Khaleesi vosalo memenem asisa.
Shefki. Woman! Kill these Dothraki dogs! I am your king!
Shall we return to the Kalasar, Khaleesi?
You walk.
Two changes are immediately apparent. One, Daenerys does not resist Viserys, even though in the books she did so, for the first time in her life. I see no good reason why it was changed, given how monumental of a moment this is for Dany, and how it shows that their entire dynamic has changed, that she is no more under his grasp. In the show, it's Rakara who comes to her rescue, like she's a damsel in distress. Two, in the books, Dany immediately finds the most appropriate punishment for Viserys in Dothraki cultural context. She takes away his ability to ride, disgracing and humiliating him, because a man who cannot ride is not worthy of respect in the Kalasar. This shows how well she adapted to the culture, and once more, shows that she is no longer within his firm grasp. In the show, it is Rakara who takes away Viserys' horse. Two of some of the most defining moments in Dany's arc have been given to Rakara. Additionally, it is after these two moments that Jorah decides that it will be Dany's order that he takes, not Viserys's, showing the beginning of Dany's leadership arc. These moments in the show rob Daenerys of the agency she is slowly gaining. Daenerys IV and Season 1 Episode 4 see Viserys riding again, but the show gives no explanation as to why he was allowed to not only ride again, but be restored to the place of honor at the head of the column. Dany followed on her silver, escorted by Ser Jorah and her brother Viserys, mounted once more. After the day in the grass when she had left him to walk back to the Kalasar, the Dothraki had laughingly called him Khal Ra'emar, the Surefoot King. Khal Drogo had offered him a place in a cart the next day, and Viserys had accepted. In his stubborn ignorance, he had not even known he was being mocked. The carts were for eunuchs, cripples, women giving birth, the very young and the very old. That one he made another name, Khal Ragad, the Cart King. Her brother had thought it was the Khal's way of apologizing for the wrong Dany had done him. She had begged Ser Jorah not to tell him the truth, lest he be shamed. The knight had replied that the king could well do with a bit of shame, yet he had done as she bid. It had taken much pleading, and all of the pillow tricks Doria had taught her, before Dany had been able to make Drogo relent, and allow Viserys to rejoin them at the head of the column. In the books, the now pregnant 14-year-old Daenerys needed to use pillow tricks to give Viserys a place of honor again. This is of course horrifying, but also shows that, irrespective of the bad relationship they have, and irrespective of how horrible he is towards her, Dany wants their relationship to improve, did not want to resentfully continue with that punishment, and wants Viserys to feel included and honored. Additionally, the low status of Daenerys as a Khaleesi is not highlighted. Someone who only watched the show or allowed the show to completely overtake their perception of the books could have an impression that the position of a Khaleesi is comparable to the Westerosi Queen Consort, But that could not be further from truth. A Khaleesi in the Khalasar is worth less than a Dothraki horse. In some Khalasars, Jiqui said, the Blood Riders shared the Khal's wine, his tent, and even his wife's. Though never his horses. A man's mount was his own. Daenerys was glad that Khal Drogo did not hold to those ancient ways. She should not have liked being shared. A lot of Dothraki lore and culture is omitted from the show as well. I understand that it would be difficult to find a suitable location to film VIII Dothrak, which is huge and very peculiar in the books, but we do not get exposition about the Dosh Khalin, the only permanent residents in the city, nor about the Mother of Mountains. Khaleesi, Koholo said to her in Dothraki. Drogo, who is blood of my blood, commands me to tell you that he must ascend the Mother of Mountains this night, to sacrifice to the gods for his safe return. Only men were allowed to set foot on the Mother, Dany knew. The Khal's Blood Riders would go with him, and return at dawn. In retrospect, this omission did not do much, because Dothraki lore continued to be disregarded in the show. The Stallion prophecy becomes completely irrelevant, as is Dany's foreshadowed ascent into the Mother of Mountains, which I believe is going to happen in the Winds of Winter. Still, this is emblematic of how the showrunners perceive this non-Western culture, another trend that will continue to follow. So, we have no time for Dothraki lore and culture, but for some unknown reason, Cripples, Bastards and Broken Things continues with the pattern of adding puzzling scenes not present in the source material at the expense of truly important scenes from the book. Dany's 2 dragon dreams were not included, but the showrunners found the space for girl-on-girl action in the previous episodes, as well as a completely random scene of Doreah and Viserys bathing and having sex in VIII Dothrak, as they give us exposition about dragons. You know, the exposition that should rightfully instead be included in Dany's dragon dreams. The scene is also not necessary as an establishment of Viserys' impulsivity and mad swings, because we already know he is mentally unstable. Doreah is also adapted very strangely. I'm bringing this up now because this is the first sign of what is about to happen with her character in Season 2, one of the most outrageous changes from the source material. Additionally, up to this point, Doreah is still a sex slave, even if she is presented as a seductress, and this scene sexualizes depiction of what is unambiguously rape. Viserys even says later, "What did I buy you for?" The show will continue to have a terrible track record with the depictions of slavery, so we will put a pin on that and return to it in later seasons. The argument between Dany and Viserys plays out more or less the same, with Daenerys giving a stronger warning to Viserys than she does in the books. "You are the one who forgets himself," Dany said to him. "Didn't you learn anything that day in the grass? Leave me now before I summon my cast to drag you out, and pray that Khal Drogo does not hear of this, or he will cut open your belly and feed you your own entrails."
I am a Khaleesi of the Dothraki. I am the wife of the great Khal, and I carry his son inside me. The next time you raise a hand to me will be the last time you have hands.
I personally think that the show's version of this line is slightly better. However, what happens afterwards is not adapted. "Your supper is ready, Khaleesi," Jiqui announced. "I'm not hungry," Dany said sadly. She was suddenly very tired. "Share the food amongst yourselves and send some to Ser Jorah, if you would." After a moment she added, "Please bring me one of my dragon's eggs." Edie fetched the egg with the deep green shell, bronze flecks shining amid its scales as she turned it in her small hands. Dany curled up on her side, pulling the sandsilk cloak across her and cradling the egg in the hollow between her swollen belly and small tender breasts. She liked to hold them. They were so beautiful, and sometimes just being close to them made her feel stronger, braver, as if somehow she was drawing strength from the stone dragons locked inside. She was lying there, holding the egg, when she felt the child move within her, as if he were reaching out, brother to brother, blood to blood. "You are the dragon," Dany whispered to him. "The true dragon. I know it. I know it." And she smiled and went to sleep dreaming of home. Dany seeks solace in her dragon eggs, and like her dragon dreams, these passages foreshadow what will happen by the end of AGOT, Daenerys becoming the mother of dragons. Here, she refers to Rhaego and what would later become Rhaegal as brothers. On a less magical note, this passage also shows Dany's generosity, as she offers the handmaids to share the food she had prepared for Viserys among themselves and send some to Jorah. The scene is followed by a conversation between Dany and Jorah that, in the books, happens while they are still at the Dothraki Sea. This makes sense somewhat, since in the show this is the first time Dany physically fights Viserys back, as opposed to the incident in the grass in the books.
I hit him. I hit the dragon.
Your brother Rhaegar was the last dragon. Viserys is less than the shadow of a snake.
He is still the true king.
Truth now. Do you want to see your brother sitting on the Iron Throne?
No. The common people are waiting for him. Illyrio said they are sewing dragon banners and praying for his return.
The common people pray for rain, health, and a summer that never ends. They don't care what games the High Lords play.
What do you pray for, Ser Jorah?
Home.
I pray for home, too. My brother will never take back the Seven Kingdom. He couldn't lead an army even if my husband gave him one. He'll never take us home.
And if this isn't the perfect time and another missed opportunity to bring up the house with the red door, showrunners had time to include Doria teaching Dany how to please the men sexually and a scene of Viserys and Doria. Why not include one passage that says, "I remember how Viserys and I still lived in Bravos, in the house with the red door. There was a lemon tree outside of my window there. I wish I could go back there." How much screen time would it take to utter these words? 10 seconds? 20? Dany's first appearance in this episode is her holding the dragon eggs and putting them in the fire. Then Irri comes and gets burned while Daenerys is unharmed. I suppose this scene is meant to be a replacement for the dragon dreams to show that she is thinking of those eggs and trying to figure something out, but it comes across as underwhelming, especially since chronologically, a similar scene happens much later, in a much better place in terms of weaving the narrative. After Viserys is already dead, right after an assassination attempt on Rhaego. The usurper has woken the dragon now, she told herself, and her eyes went to the dragon's eggs, resting in their nest of dark velvet. The shifting lamplight limned their stony scales, and shimmering motes of jade and scarlet and gold swam in the air around them, like courtiers around a king. Was it madness that seized her then, born of fear, or some strange wisdom buried in her blood? Dany could not have said. She heard her own voice saying, "Ser Jorah, light the brazier. Khaleesi." The knight looked at her strangely. "It is so hot, are you certain?" She had never been so certain. "Yes, I have a chill. Light the brazier." He bowed. "As you command." When the coals were afire, Dany sent Ser Jorah from her. She had to be alone to do what she must do. "This is madness," she told herself as she lifted the black and scarlet egg from the velvet. "It will only crack and burn, and it's so beautiful. Ser Jorah will call me a fool if I ruined it. And yet, grabbing the eggs with both hands, she carried it to the fire and pushed it down amongst the burning coals. The black scales seemed to glow as they drank the heat. Flames licked against the stone with small red tongues. Dany placed the other 2 eggs beside the black one in the fire. As she stepped back from the brazier, the breath trembled in her throat. She watched until the coals had turned to ashes. Drifting sparks floated up and out of the smoke hole. Heat shimmered in waves around the dragon's eggs. And that was all. "Your brother Rhaegar was the last dragon," Ser Jorah had said. Dany gazed at her eggs sadly. What had she expected? 1,000 years ago they had been alive, but now they were only pretty rocks. They could not make a dragon. A dragon was air and fire, living flesh, not that stone. What follows is the scene of Dany eating the horse heart, and strangely enough, the explanation of the stallion who mounts the world is given not to Daenerys, not to the Dosh Khaleen, but to Jorah.
Tell me what she's saying.
The prince is riding. I have heard the thunder of his hooves. Swift as the wind he rides. His enemies will cower before him, and their wives will weep tears of blood.
Finally the crone opened her eye and lifted her arms. "I have seen his face and heard the thunder of his hoofs," she proclaimed in a thin, wavery voice. "The thunder of his hoofs," the others chorused. "As swift as the wind he rides, and behind him Khalasar covers the earth, men without number, with arcs shining in their hands like blades of razor grass. Fierce as a storm this prince will be. His enemies will tremble before him, and their wives will weep tears of blood and rend their flesh in grief. The bells in his hair will sing his coming, and the milkmen in the stone tents will fear his name." The old woman trembled and looked at Dany, almost as if she were afraid. "The prince is riding, and he shall be the stallion who mounts the world." Why would Jorah of all people be the one to explain it, rather than to have the Dosh Khaleen be the ones to do so? The whole point of this scene is to show that the prophecy actually applies to Dany herself, not to her son, as exemplified by fierce as a storm part, because Daenerys is called Stormborn, and how the crone looks at Dany in fear as she makes the prophecy. This was, of course, disregarded, even after Dany does return to Vaes Dothrak in Season 6. Later, once more, the show follows the pattern of giving scenes to other characters at Dany's expense, this time with Viserys trying to steal her eggs, an event that is only referenced by Jorah later.
Don't let them see you carrying a sword in Vaes Dothrak. You know the law.
It's not my law.
They don't belong to you.
Whatever is hers is also mine.
Once, perhaps.
If I sell 1 egg, I'll have enough to buy a ship. 2 eggs, a ship, and an army.
And you have all three.
I need a large army. I'm the last hope of a dynasty, woman. The greatest dynasty this world has ever seen on my shoulders since I was 5 years old. And no one has ever given me what they gave to her in that tent. Never. Not a piece of it. How can I carry what I need to carry without it? Who can rule without wealth or fear or love? You stand there all nobility and honor. You don't think I see you looking at my little sister? Don't think I know. I don't care. You can have. She can be queen of the savages and dine in the finest bloody horse parts, and you can dine on whichever parts of her you like. But let me go.
You can go. You can't have the eggs.
You swore an oath to me. Does loyalty mean nothing to you?
It means everything to me.
And yet here you stand.
And yet here I stand.
That at the expense of other pivotal scenes in the books, like, for example, Daenerys explaining to Drogo the reasoning behind their child's name. What is meaning? Name Rhaego? Khal Drogo asked as they walked, using the common tongue of the Seven Kingdoms. She had been teaching him a few words when she could. Drogo was quick to learn when he put his mind to it, though his accent was so thick and barbarous that neither Ser Jorah nor Viserys could understand a word he said. My brother Rhaegar was a fierce warrior, my son and stars, she told him. He died before I was born. Ser Jorah says that he was the last of the dragons. Khal Drogo looked down at her. His face was a copper mask, yet under the long black moustache, dropping beneath the weight of its gold rings, she thought she glimpsed the shadow of a smile. His good name, Daenerys' wife, moon of my life, he said. There are some other omissions from the books, but the most important thing in this episode are the big changes in the scene of Viserys' death. First, the conversation Dany and Jorah have just before that is cut. He had planned to take your dragon's eggs, until I warned him that I would cut off his hand if he as much as touched them. For a moment Dany was so shocked she had no words. My eggs? But they're mine. Magister Illyrio gave them to me. A bride gift. Why would Viserys want? They're only stones. The same could be said of rubies and diamonds and fire opals, princess. And dragon's eggs are rarer by far. Those traders he's been drinking with would sell their own manhoods for even one of those stones, and with all three Viserys could buy as many sellswords as he might need. Dany had not known, had not even suspected. Then he should have them. He does not need to steal them. He had only to ask. He is my brother, and my true king. He is your brother, Ser Jorah acknowledged. You do not understand, sir, she said. My mother died giving me birth, and my father and my brother Rhaegar even before that. I would never have known as much as their names if Viserys had not been there to tell me. He was the only one left. The only one. He is all I have. Here we can see that Dany loves Viserys very much, in spite of how he has been treating her entire life, and is willing to give him her dragon's eggs if he wants them. The dragon's eggs that were a source of strength for her, her biggest treasure. She would be willing to give to him if he only asked.
Daenerys, where's my sister?
Stop him.
Where is she? Where is she? I'm here for the feast. The horse feast.
Come.
Get your hands off me. No one touches the dragon.
Khal
Khal Drogo, I'm here for the feast.
Khal
Drogo says there is a place for you. Back there.
That is no place for a king.
You are no king.
Keep away from me.
Viserys, please.
There she is.
Put the sword down. They'll kill us all.
They can't kill us. They can't shed blood in their sacred city. But I can.
I want what I came for. I want the crown he promised me. He bought you, but he never paid for you. Tell him I want what was bargained for, or I'm taking you back. He can keep the baby. I'll cut it out and leave it for him.
When Viserys actually appears to cause a scene, rather to just tell Jorah to stop him, Dany reinforces that if it means calming him down, she will give him her eggs. My lady, the handmaid whispered urgently, your brother. Dany looked down the length of the long, roofless hall, and there he was, striding towards her. From the ledge in his step, she could tell at once that Viserys had found his wine, and something that passed for courage. He was wearing his scarlet silks, soiled and travel-stained. His cloak and gloves were black velvet, faded from the sun. His boots were dry and cracked, his silver blonde hair matted and tangled. A long sword swung from his belt in a leather scabbard. The Dothraki eyed the sword as he passed. Dany heard curses and threats and angry muttering rising all around her, like a tide. The music died away in a nervous stammering of drums. A sense of dread closed around her heart. Go to him, she commanded Ser Jorah. Stop him. Bring him here. Tell him he can have the dragon's eggs, if that is what he wants. The books strongly reinforce that Viserys signed a death warrant on himself the moment he drew the sword, and once again, Dany is willing to give him the axe if it means he calms down. Dany gave a wordless cry of terror. She knew what a drawn sword meant here, even if her brother did not. Her voice made Viserys turn his head, and he saw her for the first time. "There she is," he said, smiling. He stalked towards her, slashing at the air as if to cut a path through a wall of enemies, though no one tried to bar his way. "The blade, you must not," she begged him. "Please, Viserys, it is forbidden. Put down the sword and share my cushions. There's drink, food. Is it the dragon's eggs you want? You can have them. Only throw away the sword." Another thing that gets changed from the source material is Jiqui's reaction to the request to translate Viserys' words, and Dany's reaction to it. Distantly, as from far away, Dany heard her handmaid Jiqui sobbing in fear, pleading that she dared not translate, that the Khal would bind her and drag her behind his horse all the way up the Mother of Mountains. She put her arm around the girl. "Don't be afraid," she said. "I shall tell him." She did not know if she had enough words, yet when she was done, Khal Drogo spoke a few brusque sentences in Dothraki, and she knew he understood. The son of her life stepped down from the high benches. In the show, Iri translates these words without fear. In the books, Jiqui is scared to repeat these words, and Daenerys consoles her, deciding to translate it herself, showing that she is protective of her people, even in the situation of such emotional distress. People who hate Daenerys often accuse her of not doing anything to stop Viserys' death, and even use this moment as foreshadowing of her madness. Let me reiterate that she does not owe him defense, either in the books or in the show, but in the context of the book, it's just a straight-up false statement. She does try to save him, and tries to calm him down even when he draws the sword, which is already a death sentence, reiterating twice that he can even have the dragon eggs, if it means he just stops fucking around. It is only after he threatens Rhaego that she gives up on him. This, once more, proves the thesis of this video, that we should finally have a conversation about these changes, and in earnest examine how the show influenced the perception of Dany's character, to such a drastic degree that it's the adaptation that people turn towards when analyzing her, and so often forget how different she was already in the first season. Overall, these changes follow an already familiar pattern: removal of Dany's dialogue and internal monologue, or giving it to other characters instead. Removal of Dany's compassionate nature, as exemplified by the change with Jiqui, and most importantly, toning down Dany's emotional reactions, in favor of making her stoic and emotionless. In the first scene that Dany appears in You Win or You Die, Drogo and Daenerys broadly discuss the same things as they do at the beginning of Daenerys VI, but already in this scene, the show chose to adapt their relationship as more blissful and affectionate, borderline domestic, where in the books, I don't recall Drogo ever showing genuine physical affection to Dany. When Drogo leaves to hunt, Dany, Jorah, her handmaids and her cast go to the market, and yet again, Dany's internal reasoning as to why she wants to convince Drogo to invade the Seven Kingdoms is not relayed to us in any way, shape or form. If I were not the blood of the dragon, she thought wistfully, this could be my home. She was Khaleesi. She had a strong man and a swift horse, handmaids to serve her, warriors to keep her safe, an honored place in the Doshkalin awaiting her when she grew old. And in her womb grew a son who would one day bestride the world. That should be enough for any woman, but not for the dragon. With Viserys gone, Daenerys was the last, the very last. She was the seed of kings and conquerors, and so too the child inside her. She must not forget. Here we have the continued theme of searching for home and a sense of belonging. Earlier Dany thinks, home, that word made her sad. Ser Jorah had his bare island, but what was home to her? A few tales, names recited as solemnly as the words of a prayer, the fading memory of a red door. Was Vaes Dothrak to be her home forever? When she looked at the crowns of the Doshkalin, was she looking at her future? What I find the most significant here is that the memory of the red door is described as fading. I believe this is the only time it is described as such, and I think it's supposed to represent that Daenerys did find among the Dothraki the closest thing to a home she's had since Braavos. This one paragraph gives us a crucial insight to Dany's psyche. Daenerys does not want the throne for the sake of ambition, but because of the sense of duty Viserys instilled in her. She needs to remind herself that what she actually wants, that is, a home, a place to belong, a family, is secondary to the duty of reclaiming the Seven Kingdoms. One small thing that I wish was included was Daenerys hanging out with her friends. We do see that Iri and Doria carry things that they got from the market, but I wish we saw them actually spend time together and goofing around, to remind us that they are really all a bunch of teenagers. When I was a little girl, I loved to play in the bazaar, Dany told Ser Jorah as they wandered down the shady aisle between the stalls. It was so alive there, all the people shouting and laughing, so many wonderful things to look at, though we seldom had enough coin to buy anything. Well, except for a sausage, now and again, or honey fingers. Do they have honey fingers in the Seven Kingdoms? The kind they bake in Tyrosh. Her handmaids strayed along as Dany resumed her stroll through the market. "Oh, look," she exclaimed to Doria. "Those are the kind of sausages I meant." She pointed to a stall where a wizened little woman was grilling meat and onions on a hot firestone. "They make them with lots of garlic and hot peppers." Delighted with her discovery, Dany insisted the others join her for a sausage. Her handmaids wolfed theirs down, giggling and grinning, though the man of her caste sniffed at the grilled meat suspiciously. "They taste different than I remember," Dany said after her first few bites. "In Pentos, I make them with pork," the old woman said. "But all my pigs died on the Dothraki Sea. These are made of horsemeat, Khaleesi, but I spice them the same." "Oh," Dany felt disappointed. But Quarro liked his sausage so well, he decided to have another one, and Rakharo had to outdo him and eat 3 more, belching loudly. Dany giggled. "You have not laughed since your brother the Khal Ragad was crowned by Drogo," said Iri. "It is good to see, Khaleesi." Dany smiled shyly. It was sweet to laugh. She felt half a girl again. The show sort of glosses over Viserys' death. It's like Dany is not affected by it at all, but in the books, Iri's comment is very telling. She makes an observation that Daenerys has not been laughing since Drogo crowned Viserys, so it must have been a while to make a difference. They wandered for half the morning. She saw a beautiful feather cloak from the Summer Isles and took it for a gift. In return, she gave the merchant a silver medallion from her belt. That was how it was done among the Dothraki. A bird seller taught a green and red parrot to say her name, and Dany laughed again, yet still refused to take him. What would she do with a green and red parrot in a Khalasar? She did take a dozen flasks of scented oils, the perfumes of her childhood. She had only to close her eyes and sniff them, and she could see the big house with the red door once more. When Doria looked longingly at a fertility charm at the magician's booth, Dany took that too, and gave it to the handmaid, thinking that now she should find something for Iri and Jiqui as well. Here Dany's generosity shines again, which is why I wish we saw at least some of it on screen. The assassination attempt on Daenerys that follows is more or less the same, but it's what happens later that's drastically different. In the books, Drogo does not lunge towards Daenerys to ask her if she's alright, following the blissful loving affection similar to the one earlier in the episode. Instead he says, "The seller of poison ran from the moon of my life. Better he should run after her. So he will. Drogo, Jorah the Andal, to each of you I say, choose any horse you wish from my herds, and it is yours. Any horse, save my red and the silver that was my bride gift to the moon of my life. I make this gift to you for what you did." There's reasons to indicate that in the books, Drogo wasn't really concerned for Daenerys' life, but that of his son, which explains what he says later. "And to Rhaego, son of Drogo, the stallion who will mount the world, to him I also pledge a gift. To him I will give the iron chair his mother's father sat in. I will give him 7 kingdoms. I, Drogo Khal, will do this thing." In the books, Drogo does not decide to invade the 7 kingdoms because Daenerys' life was threatened. He isn't doing it for her. He does this because a Westerosi threatened the life of his son. And for whatever reason, during Drogo's speech, the directors had Emilia Clarke act strangely, to say the least. In the books, we don't see Dany's reaction towards his declaration, but in the show, she is portrayed as weirdly, triumphant, moved, aroused even, as he's saying it. This is another moment that people turn towards when pointing to the Mad Queen foreshadowing, but it's just not in the books. We don't get Dany's reaction to it whatsoever. Yet again, a very puzzling and disturbing addition, especially coupled with the removal of the fan in the bazaar. The changes between Drogo and Daenerys especially contribute to the perception that what they had was not a slave trauma bonding with her pedophile, abusive, rapist owner, but a young girl who managed to win her husband's respect and love. Still disturbing, though it's not portrayed like that in the show, but not as much as how this relationship was portrayed in the books. Again, the show's perception of this relationship is then projected onto the books, where Drogo does not have that tiny bit of respect he has for Daenerys in the show, and where the matter of his ownership of her is not at all ambiguous. First thing that gets omitted from the Pointy end is a crucial information that Drogo's Khalasar was not the first one on the scene of the slaughter in the Lazarin village. The ship had been dead longest. There seemed to be thousands of them, black with flies, arrows shifts bristling from each carcass. Khal Ogos' riders had done that, Dany knew. No man of Drogo's Kalasar would be such a fool as to waste his arrows on sheep when there were shepherds yet to kill. Ogo and his son had shared the high bench with her lord husband and the naming feast, where Viserys had been crowned. But that was in Vaes Dothrak, beneath the Mother of Mountains, where every rider was a brother, and all quarrels were put aside. It was different out in the grass. Ogos Kalasar had been attacking the town when Khal Drogo caught him. This is very important, as it will inform our understanding of the rest of Daenerys' storyline in AGOT, and in particular, her interactions with Mirri Maz Duur. For now, we put a pin on that. One thing that gets cut is the short dialogue between Jorah and Daenerys. Go with them, she commanded Ser Jorah. As you command. The knight gave her a curious look. You are your brother's sister, in truth. Viserys? She did not understand. No, he answered. Rhaegar. He galloped off. This omission contributes to Rhaegar's very weak presence in the show. This guy is supposed to haunt the narrative, and yet he was barely mentioned. This is a second missed opportunity to bring him up, after the lack of explanation why Dany named her son after him. This will cause problems further down the line, and not only for Daenerys' storyline. The show also omits the character of Irohe. Mormont pulled the girl off the pile of corpses, and wrapped her in his blood-splattered cloak. He led her across the road to Dany. What do you want done with her? The girl was trembling, her eyes wide and vague. Her hair was matted with blood. Doria, sit to her hurts. You do not have a rider's look, perhaps she will not fear you. The rest with me. She edged the silver through the broken wooden gate. The show usually cuts Dany's dialogue, but as we go forward, we will see a pattern of it adding some. This is one of the instances. No such dialogue happens in the books. Dany does not position that as a Khaleesi, she has the right to command Mago. All the authority she possesses derives from Drogo, and what Drogo allows her. This is probably why some people who consider themselves to be book experts claim that Dany was the second most powerful person in the Kalasar, when it couldn't have been further from the truth. And we will see later that it's also true in the show. This exchange between Dany and Mirri is also cut. Before, Dany said to the ugly Lazarine woman, I heard you speak of birthing songs. I know every secret of the bloody bed, Silver Lady. Nor have I ever lost a babe, Mirri Maz Duur replied. My time is near, Dany said. I would have you attend me when he comes, if you would. Khal Drogo laughed. Moon of my life, you do not ask a slave, you tell her. She will do as you command. Many great thinkers in this fandom call Dany Mirri's owner, but this exchange and Drogo's reaction to it show that, irrespective of everything that happened, Dany does not look down at Mirri or the Lazarine with disdain. In fact, it indicates something about her character that she does not formulate it as an order, but a request. Thus, something Mirri could potentially decline. Food for thought. Another thing that gets omitted is Mirri giving Drogo instructions on things he should not do as the wound is healing. Instructions that she suspected he would not follow, which explains that she was indeed planning to exact her revenge. You must say the prayers I give you and keep the lambskin in place for 10 days and 10 nights, she said. There will be fever and itching and a great scar when the healing is done. Khal Drogo sat, bells ringing. I sing of my scars, sheep woman. He flexed his arm and scolded. Drink neither wine nor the milk of the poppy, she cautioned him. Pain you will have, but you must keep your body strong to fight the poisoned spirits. This again leads to misunderstanding as to whether Mirri was trying to hurt Drogo, or if it was just a big whoopsie. In Daenerys VIII, Drogo is shown to disregard all her instructions. Mirri Maz Duur poultice had itched and burned, and he had torn it off 6 days ago, cursing her for a Maegi. The mud plaster was more soothing, and the herb women made him poppy wine as well. He had been drinking it heavily these past 3 days. When it was not poppy wine, it was fermented mare's milk or pepper beer. As such, it really seems like the matter of the wound getting infected was just an accident and not Mirri's deliberate work. Another thing in Daenerys VIII that caught my attention is this exchange after Drogo falls off his horse. We have ridden far enough today. We will camp here. Here. Hago looked around them. The land was brown and sere, inhospitable. This is no camping ground. It is not for a woman to beat us halt, said Koto. Not even a Khaleesi. We camp here, Dany repeated. Hago, tell them Khal Drogo commanded the halt. If any ask why, say to them that my time is near, and I could not continue. Koholo, bring up the slaves. They must put up the Khal's tent at once. Koto, you do not command me, Khaleesi, Koto said. Find Mirri Maz Duur, she told him. The god's wife would be walking among the other lambmen, in the long column of slaves. Bring her to me, with her chest. Koto glared down at her, his eyes hard as flint. The Maegi, he spat. This I will not do. You will, Dany said. Or when Drogo wakes, he will hear why you defied me. Hilariously, this exchange does make it into the TV show, even though it's a direct contradiction between the interaction Daenerys and Mago had in the Pointy end.
Kisha mea shekashek. Kisha avmedraki hinne.
Beni vos gachi bimithirat. Ichori vos aso e kisha. Vos khalesiaka.
Kisha avmedraki hinne aste khaldrogo aste moran. Sekwotos
Shafka vos aso e anna khalesi.
izimir malsore fishi meach.
Maigi. Ana fitek shafkan haris khalesi.
Fishi meachan oziza. Shikaldrogo ache acha.
So is Khaleesi fit to give orders or not? The book is consistent in the fact that she isn't, but the show is unable to keep its own narrative straight for the sake of making it seem like Dany has more power than she does. Another change is Dany's reaction to Drogo falling off his horse. I have the impression that show Daenerys is indeed terrified, but tries to hide it beneath the veneer of anger.
Khaleesi.
Come, he's very strong. No one understands how strong he is.
He will die tonight, Khaleesi.
He can't, I won't let him.
Even a queen doesn't have that power. We must go quickly. I've heard there's a good port in Ashai.
I won't leave him.
He's already gone, Khaleesi.
Even if he dies, why would I run? I am Khaleesi, and my son will be Karl after Drogo.
This isn't Westeros, where men honor blood. Here they only honor strength. They'll be fighting after Drogo dies. Whoever wins that fight will be the new Karl. You won't want any rivals. Your boy will be plucked from your breast and given to the dogs.
I won't leave him.
In the books, her fear is what shines through it all. Iroi stared fearfully at Drogo where he lay. He dies, she whispered. Dany slapped her. The Khal cannot die. He is the father of the stallion who mounts the world. His hair has never been cut. He still wears the bells his father gave him. Khaleesi, Jikwi said. He fell from his horse. Trembling, her eyes full of sudden tears, Dany turned away from them. He fell from his horse. It was so, she had seen it, and the Blood Riders, and no doubt her handmaids, and the men of her caste as well. A foul, sweet smell rose from the wound, so thick it almost choked her. The lips were crusted with blood and pus, Drogo's breast black and glistening with corruption. No, Dany whispered, as tears ran down her cheeks. No, please, God hear me, no. Khal Drogo thrashed, fighting some unseen enemy. Black blood ran slow and thick from his open wound. Your Khal is good as dead, princess. No, he can't die, he mustn't. It was only a cut. Dany took his large callous hand in her own small ones, and held it tight between them. I will not let him die. The boy will be taken from your breast the moment he is born. They will give him to the dogs. Dany hugged herself. But why? She cried plaintively. Why would they kill a little baby? Dany did not want to go back to Varys Dothraki and live the rest of her life among those terrible old women, yet she knew that the knight spoke the truth. Drogo had been more than her sun and stars. He had been the shield that kept her safe. I will not leave him, she said stubbornly, miserably. She took his hand again. I will not. Show Daenerys is shown to be scared, but also angry, to hide it. Book Daenerys cannot help but show her fear. This is also visible in how the exchange between her and Koto plays out.
Javrati le, mezin Khaleesi shafki.
Kashkoi koi tira disse.
Betri voi, me vossi.
Anha vos zavek. Anha koi zarvossi.
Ser Jorah stepped between them, loosening his longsword in its scabbard. Rein in your tongue, Blood Rider. The princess is still your Khaleesi. Only while the blood of my blood still lives, Koto told the knight. When he dies, she is nothing. Dany felt a tightness inside her. Before I was Khaleesi, I was the blood of the dragon. Ser Jorah, summon my cuz. The show has Dany deliver this line angrily. In the books, we have no indication of this whatsoever. The show focused on Dany's anger. The books highlighted her fear. In her interactions with Miri, Dany is shown as demanding rather than pleading.
You've saved me once more.
And now you must save him.
He's beyond the healer's skills. All I can do is ease his path.
Save him and I will free you, I swear it. You must know a way. Some magic.
Dany turned back to Miri Mazdur. The woman's eyes were wary. So you have saved me once more. And now you must save him, Dany said. Please. You do not ask a slave, Miri replied sharply. You tell her. Miri and Dany also discussed the healing advice Miri gave Drogo, but he disregarded, something she likely predicted would happen. She went to Drogo burning on his mat, and gazed long at his wound. Ask or tell, it makes no matter. He is beyond the healer's skills. The Khal's eyes were closed. She opened one with her fingers. He has been dulling the heart with milk of the poppy. Yes, Dany admitted. I made him a poultice or fire pot, and sting me not, and bound it with lambskin. It burned, he said. He tore it off. The herb women made him a new one, wet and soothing. It burned, yes. There is great healing magic in fire. Even your hairless men know that. Make him another poultice, Dany begged. This time I will make certain he wears it. The time for that is past, my lady, Miri said. All I can do now is ease the dark road before him, so he may ride painless to the Nightlands. He will be gone by morning. After this exchange, Dany's despair is also omitted. Her words were a knife through Dany's breast. What had she ever done to make the gods so cruel? She had finally found a safe place, had finally tasted love and hope. She was finally going home, and now to lose it all. No, she pleaded. Save him and I will free you. I swear it. You must know a way. Some magic, some... Dany being demanding as opposed to pleading, and Dany hiding her fear behind anger, coupled with the removal of her positive emotions and the respect she shows to everyone around her in favor of making her demanding, is a choice that will continue as we go forward with the show. Per the previous pattern, the third longest and most detailed dragon dream Daenerys has in the books is cut. This dream is not there just to have a cool dream sequence, but to establish Dany finding the last clues for waking dragons out of stone, establishing her connection to the great Empire of the Dawn, and foreshadow her triumph over darkness as Azor Ahai. It is also yet another omission of the house with the red door. Wings shadowed her fevered dreams. You don't want to wake the dragon, do you? She was walking down a long hall, beneath high stone arches. She could not look behind her, must not look behind her. There was a door ahead of her, tiny with distance, but even from afar she saw that it was painted red. She walked faster, and her bare feet left bloody footprints on the stone. You don't want to wake the dragon, do you? She saw sunlight on the Dothraki Sea, the living plain, rich with the smells of earth and death. Wind stirred the grasses, and they rippled like water. Drogo held her in strong arms, and his hands stroked her sex, and opened her and walked the sweet wetness that was his alone, and the stars smiled down on them, stars in a daylight sky. Home, she whispered as he entered her, and filled her with his seed. But suddenly the stars were gone, and across the blue sky swept the great wings, and the world took flame. Don't want to wake the dragon, do you? Ser Jorah's face was drawn and sorrowful. Rhaegar was the last dragon, he told her. He warmed translucent hands over a glowing brazier, when stone eggs smoldered red as coals. One moment he was there, and the next he was fading, his flesh colorless, less substantial than the wind. The last dragon, he whispered, thin as a wisp, and was gone. She felt the dark behind her, and the red door seemed farther away than ever. Don't want to wake the dragon, do you? Viserys stood before her, screaming. The dragon does not beg, slut. You do not command the dragon. I am the dragon, and I will be crowned. The molten gold trickled down his face like wax, burning deep channels in his flesh. I am the dragon, and I will be crowned. He shrieked, and his fingers snapped like snakes, biting at her nipples, pinching, twisting, even as his eyes burst and ran like jelly, down seared and blackened cheeks. Don't want to wake the dragon. The red door was so far ahead of her, and she could feel the icy breath behind, sweeping up on her. If it caught her, she would die a death that was more than death, howling forever alone in the darkness. She began to run. Don't want to wake the dragon. She could feel the heat inside her, a terrible burning in her womb. Her son was tall and proud, with Drogo's copper skin, and her own silver gold hair, violet eyes shaped like almonds. And he smiled for her, and began to lift his hand towards hers, but when he opened his mouth the fire poured out. She saw his heart burning through his chest, and in an instant he was gone, consumed like a moth by a candle, turned to ash. She wept for her child, the promise of a sweet mouth on her breast, and her tears turned to steam as they touched her skin. Want to wake the dragon. Ghosts lined the hallway, dressed in the faded raiment of kings. In their hands were swords of pale fire. They had hair of silver, and hair of gold, and hair of platinum white, and their eyes were opal and amethyst, tourmaline and jade. Faster, they cried. Faster, faster. She raced, her feet melting the stone wherever they touched. Faster, the ghosts cried as one. And she screamed and threw herself forward. A great knife of pain ripped down her back, and she felt her skin tear open, and smelled the stench of burning blood, and saw the shadow of wings. And Daenerys Targaryen flew. Wake the dragon. The door loomed before her, the red door, so close, the hall was a blur around her, the cold receding behind, and now the stone was gone and she flew across the Dothraki Sea, high and higher, the green ripple beneath, and all that lived and breathed fled in terror from the shadow of her wings. She could smell home, she could see it, there, just beyond that door, green fields and great stone houses, and arms to keep her warm. There, she threw open the door. The dragon. And saw her brother Rhaegar, mounted on a stallion as black as his armor. Fire glimmered red through the narrow eye-slit of his helm. The last dragon, Ser Jorah's voice whispered faintly. The last, the last. Then he lifted his polished black visor. The face within was her own. Another large omission is Dany trying to seek out her dragon's eggs upon waking up. Bring me... Her voice was raw as a wound, and she could not think what she wanted. Why did she hurt so much? It was as if her body had been torn to pieces and remained from scraps. I want, yes, Khaleesi. Quick as that, Jikwi was gone, bolting from the tent, shouting. Dany needed... something. Someone. What? It was important, she knew. It was the only thing in the world that mattered. She rolled onto her side and got an elbow under her, finding the blanket tangled about her legs. It was so hard to move. The word swam dizzily. I have to. They found her on the carpet, crawling towards her dragon eggs. Bring me, she murmured. Her voice slurred and drowsy. Bring, I want to hold. Yes? The Magi asked. What is it you wish, Khaleesi? Bring me egg, dragon's egg, please. Her lashes turned to lead, and she was too weary to hold them up. When she woke the third time, a shaft of golden sunlight was pouring through the smoke hole of the tent, and her arms were wrapped around a dragon's egg. It was the pale one, its scales the color of buttercream, weighing with whorls of gold and bronze, and Dany could feel the heat of it. Beneath her bed silks, a fine sheen of perspiration covered her bare skin. Dragon dew, she thought. Her fingers traced lightly across the surface of the shell, tracing the wisps of gold, and deep in the stone, she felt something twist and stretch in response. It did not frighten her. All her fear was gone, burned away. This is the second time Dany seeks strength in her dragon's eggs, and the second time the show omits it, even though in the second instance, Dany senses that the egg is alive. And only she senses it. Ser Jorah, come here, she said. She took his hand and placed it on the black egg with the scarlet swirls. What do you feel? Shell, hard as rock. The night was wary. Scales. Heat? No, cold stone. As Iroe was cut, we also do not get this exchange. At least for now, somewhat. Iroe, asked Dany, remembering the frightened child she had saved outside the city of the Lampmen. Mago seized her. Who is Khal Draco's blood rider now? Said Drogo. He mounted her high and low and gave her to his Khal. And Draco gave her to his other blood riders. They were 6. When they were done with her, they cut her throat. It was her fate, Khaleesi, said Ago. If I look back, I am lost. It was a cruel fate, Dany said. Yet not so cruel as Magos will be. I promise you that, by the old gods and the new, by the lamb god and the horse god and every god that lives, I swear it by the mother of mountains and the womb of the world. Before I am done with them, Mago and Kojako will plead for the mercy they showed Iroe. The Dothraki exchanged uncertain glances. Khaleesi, the handmaid Iri explained, as if to a child. Draco is a Khal now, with 20,000 riders at his back. She lifted her head. And I am Daenerys Stormborn. Daenerys of House Targaryen. Of the blood of Aegon the Conqueror, and Maegor the Cruel, and all Valyria before them. I am the dragon's daughter, and I swear to you, these men will die screaming. And mind you, Iroe's fate is something that will continue to haunt her well into A Dance with Dragons. The pattern of Dany being demanding and even somewhat entitled continues in the show, where this is the tone of the voice she uses while talking to the Maiaki.
I spoke for you. I saved you.
Whereas in the books, she uses a different tone of voice. I spoke for you. She said, anguished. I saved you. Now there's the very well-known exchange of Miri teaching Dany a cruel yet valuable lesson of what life is worth when everything else is gone. And here we will return to the pin from earlier. Miri's village was invaded before Drogo's Khalasar even appeared there. It was already plundered and Miri's people would have been slaughtered and enslaved, regardless of whether they appeared there. That does not mean Drogo was justified, but it recontextualizes a lot. Drogo was not unique in his behavior, nor was Daenerys uniquely at fault for what happened, especially since the book makes it very clear that the only reason Drogo even decided to do it was because he wanted to avenge the assassination attempt on Rhaego. He was not doing it for Daenerys, remember. Several things in the pyre scene were disregarded and omitted, as per usual. The only one of Dany's blood riders that made it onto the screen is Rakaro, so there is no scene of Dany naming Drogo, Ago and Rakaro as her blood riders. Nor does she, interestingly, name Jorah as a member of her Queen's Guard. She turned to the 3 young warriors of her cause. Drogo, to you I give the silver-handled whip that was my bride gift, and name you Ko, and ask your oath that you will live and die as blood of my blood, riding at my side to keep me safe from harm. Drogo took the whip from her hands, but his face was confused. Khaleesi, he said hesitantly. This is not done. It would shame me to be blood rider to a woman. Ago, Dany called, paying no heed to Drogo's words. If I look back, I am lost. To you I give the dragon-bone bow that was my bride gift. It was double-curved, shiny black and exquisite, taller than she was. I name you Ko, and ask your oath that you should live and die as blood of my blood, riding at my side to keep me safe from harm. Ago accepted the bow with lowered eyes. I cannot say these words. Only a man can lead Kalasar or name a Ko. Rakaro, Dany said, turning away from the refusal. You shall have the great Arak. That was my bride gift, with hilt and blade chased in gold. And you too I name my Ko, and ask that you live and die as blood of my blood, riding at my side to keep me safe from harm. You are Khaleesi, Rakaro said, taking the Arak. I shall ride at your side to verse the track beneath the Mother of Mountains, and keep you safe from harm until you take your place with the crowns of the Doshkalin. No more can I promise. Ser Jorah Mormont, she said, first and greatest of my knights, I have no bride gift to give you, but I swear to you, one day you shall have, from my hands, a long sword, like none the world has ever seen, dragon-forged and made of Valyrian steel, and I would ask for your oath as well. You have it, my queen, Ser Jorah said, kneeling to lay his sword at her feet. I vow to serve you, to obey you, to die for you if need be. Whatever may come, whatever may come. I shall hold you to that oath. I pray you never regret the giving of it. Dany lifted him to his feet. Stretching on her toes to reach his lips, she kissed the knight gently and said, You are the first of my queen's guard. We also do not have a scene of Jorah referring to Dany as princess before she corrects him by claiming that, as Viserys' heir, she is the queen now. Ser Jorah drew her aside as the sun was creeping towards its zenith. Princess, he began. Why do you call me that? Dany challenged him. My brother Viserys was your king. Was he not? He was, my lady. Viserys is dead. I am his heir, the last blood of House Targaryen. Whatever was his is mine now. My queen, Ser Jorah said, going to one knee. In the books, it is Dany herself who places dragon's eggs in the pyre, not Rakaro, and their placement is not accidental either, especially the one next to Drogo's heart. She climbed the pyre herself to place the eggs around her sun and stars, the black beside his heart, under his arm, the green beside his head, his braid coiled around it, the cream and gold down between his legs. There is no comet. Drogo spied it first. There, he said in a hushed voice. Dany looked and saw it, low in the east. The first star was a comet, burning red, blood red, fire red, the dragon's tail. She could not have asked for a stronger sign. These words from Miri are cut. It is not enough to kill a horse, she told Dany. By itself the blood is nothing. You do not have the words to make a spell, nor the wisdom to find them. Do you think blood magic is a game for children? You call me Maegi, as if it were a curse, but all it means is wise. You are a child, with a child's ignorance. Whatever you mean to do, it will not work. Loose me from these bonds, and I will help you. And further.
You will not hear me scream!
I will, but it's not your screams I want, only your life.
This line is cut. I remember what you told me, only death pays for life. To show that this is not just revenge on her behalf, but a necessary component of the blood magic ritual. Dany's speech to her remaining Kalasar is shortened, omitting this passage, which links Daenerys symbolically to the archetypes of the maiden, mother, and crone. I see the children, women, the wrinkled faces of the aged. I was a child yesterday. Today I am a woman. Tomorrow I will be old. To each of you I say, give me your hands and your hearts, and there will always be a place for you. They did, however, include this line that, in the books, Daenerys said in response to Iroha's brutal fate.
I am Daenerys Stormborn, of House Targaryen, of the blood of old Valyria. I am the dragon's daughter, and I swear to you that those who would harm you will die screaming.
Season finale ends with something extremely ridiculous. Jorah referring to Dany as blood of my blood. But he's not her blood rider. She does not have blood riders. So why the hell is he saying it? Season 1 is about the most faithful when it comes to adapting the book material, yet still, the changes, cuts and alterations were significant. The key difference between book and show Daenerys are as follows. No mention of the house with the red door, representing her true desires, her longing for home and a simple life, and a continued disregard to that true motivation. No visual or verbal clues to how Daenerys is a bridal slave as opposed to just a bride in a bad arranged marriage, removal of magic and dreams, removal of childlike behaviors and more whimsical aspects of her personality, removal of much of Dothraki lore and culture, removal of Dany's compassionate and generous side and the respect she has for other people around her, in favor of making her demanding, and many more. Throughout this video, I was able to decisively prove that a great deal of arguments used against Daenerys stem from this butchered characterization in the TV show, taking precedence over her book characterization. Here are some examples I was able to catch. Denying that Dany was sold to Drogo as a bridal slave. Believing that she was just lucky in the pyre, as opposed to her performing the ritual by piecing the clues from her dragon dreams and Miri's painful lessons. Considering her arrogant and entitled. Calling her Drogo's second-in-command, believing that Khaleesi has power in the Khalasar due to the exchange between Dany and Mago in the Pointy End. And many more. And it will be even worse as we go further with the seasons. This is the end of part 1 of this analysis. The next release will deal with A Clash of Kings and Season 2. For now, as always, thanks for watching. Remember that if you like my content, like, subscribe and share so that more people can see it. Make sure to click the notification button so that you never miss a new video. And remember, Phoenix rises from the ashes, and ashes always stand on top.